What are the metrics that matter when it comes to you achieving your goals in 2022? That is the topic of today's episode of CRE Success, the podcast. We're up to episode 81 of the show. My name is Darren Krakowiak, and I'm here to help you if you're in commercial real estate, save time, earn more, and be a top performer in your market. Really appreciate you choosing to spend another 10 or 15 minutes with us today. And the point of today's episode is actually to do a little bit of a check-in because it is the 30th of March, the day that we're releasing this episode, which means we are almost exactly 1/4 of the way through 2022. And if you have been listening to some past episodes of the show, you might be familiar with episode 68, which was called How to Win in 2022. And in that episode, I invited listeners to set some goals for the new year and also to have a think about things that they would like to start doing, stop doing, do more of, and do less of. And by doing those things or not doing them or doing more or less of them would actually help them achieve their goals. And that got me thinking about ways that you can actually measure if you're getting closer to the goals that you set at the start of the year. Because sometimes I think we can get distracted by metrics that don't matter. And the one metric that I know I have spent too much time looking at, particularly since I started this business, is social media. And I certainly have gotten better in 2022. I actually set the intention that I'm not going to spend so much time on social media when it comes to the content creation process. I wasn't going to put as much stock in the results that I was getting from social media. I was actually going to focus more of my efforts into the podcast, and that the content that I was producing on social media would be around bringing people into the podcast, and the podcast would be, if you like, the pillar content that I would put most of my time in to actually drive traffic and generate interest in the business. One thing I noticed though is even though I have committed to not spending so much time on social media and having my social media content really about driving people to the podcast, and as a result, I'm not as focused on likes, on views on social media, and I'm more focused on the podcast downloads, is that maybe I'm a little bit too focused on podcast downloads. And probably I need to spend a little bit less time thinking about, or at least worrying about, the downloads of the podcast. Yes, I think it's a good metric to check, a couple of times a week to see if I'm improving in terms of the number of people who are listening to a new episode, number of new listeners who are coming in versus people who have already been listening to the show, and also understanding the content which is popular because certain episodes perform better. But if you're checking it 2, 3, 4 times a day, which I've caught myself doing a couple of times, particularly when the episodes were ticking up a little bit, I was like, oh, this is interesting. We're getting better. That's great. It's just not really a good use of your time. And you've got to, I think in regards to social media in particular, have a think about, well, is this a metric that matters? Because likes don't pay the bills and podcast downloads don't pay the bills. What pays the bills is, if you're in commercial real estate, it's signing mandates and doing contracts and being appointed to do work for your clients. And in what I'm doing, it's selling training and speaking and coaching to commercial real estate professionals and leaders, so I can help leaders develop their people and grow their business, and help individuals save time, earn more, and be a top performer in their market. So I think we've all got an opportunity at times to just have a look at what it is that we're focused on and making sure that we're focused on those metrics that matter. And generally, they're going to be the outputs more so than things like social media. But there are times when there are inputs that we should be focused on as well. For example, if we know that the amount of time that we spend on prospecting is likely to lead to a certain number of meetings, and a certain number of meetings leads to a certain number of successful appointments and ultimately deals and revenue. So in episode 68 of the show, which was, as I mentioned, How to Win in 2022. And by the way, that was actually our most popular show in the last 6 months by a long way. So I thought it was worth following up on it. Trying not to be too obsessed about those numbers though. I did invite you to start, stop, do more and do less of certain tasks that would help you achieve your goals. And in regards to goal setting, I mentioned that your goals should be specific, measurable, ambitious, relevant, and time bound. So that's the SMART acronym. And I believe that ambitious is interchangeable with achievable, because we want to be a little bit more ambitious. If you want to go back and listen to that episode, I really encourage you to. It's not just about for 2022. It could be useful at any time. I thought it might be just interesting to do my own review of how I'm doing in relation to the intentions and the goals that I set, and that might encourage you to do the same thing. So I said that I would, for example, start walking away from my desk at lunchtime. And I thought that might just be a healthy thing to do, because I noticed that I was at times spending all of my time at my desk, and that I would bring my lunch in on those days, and then I wouldn't actually go outside. And I thought, that's got to stop. So definitely I'll give myself a tick. I've been going for a walk at lunchtime, even if there are days where I bring my own lunch and I might eat it at my desk. I'll still make sure I get out and enjoy some fresh air. One that I failed on was stop reading the news online. And I did try and set myself up for success here, because what I did was subscribe to the physical newspaper on the weekend. And I thought, by subscribing to the newspaper on the weekend, I can get my fix of news, and then I won't have the need to check online news during the week. I've gotten better. I'm not checking the news in the office, but I do find myself checking it on the phone at night time from time to time. So that's when I need to get a little bit better on. For more, I said I would do more of my physio stretches to rebuild some muscle in an atrophied muscle in my left leg. And I am doing that work, and it takes time and the progress is slow. So that's a real challenging one, but I've continued to do it more, because there is the progress that I'm seeing. And it's kind of like with prospecting, right? It takes some time for you to see some progress, but you've got to keep doing it and have the belief that what you're doing is actually going to lead to the result, and have that discipline. And the thing that I said I would do less of, one of the things was working on Fridays. I said I want to work less on Fridays. I didn't say stop, because I didn't think that I'd be able to completely stop working on Fridays, but certainly I wanted to work less, and that includes having lunch with my wife on Fridays, for example. We've even been to the movies a few times on Fridays, which has been good. So have a think about if you have been true to the things that you said you would start, stop, do more of, and do less of. And also go back and review those goals that you set and see how you're going. We're a quarter of the way through the year. So are you 25% of your way onto achieving those goals? Or are you maybe a little bit behind or a little bit ahead? Now, if you are a little bit ahead, that could be an opportunity for you to increase the goal. You may have been underestimating your ability to perform in relation to that metric. You may need to also think about if something has changed, and as a result, you need to create a new goal or reprioritize what you thought was important at the start of the year. But if you are going to abandon a goal, make sure that you're doing that for the right reasons. One mistake I see people sometimes committing is that they will see that they haven't really had a chance to start work on one of their goals, and they just think, I don't have time for that, and they just put it to one side. I really encourage you just to have to think about, are you sure that it's not important? Because when you set the intention at the start of the year, you said it was important. So just make sure that you're giving it up for the right reasons, not because you're behind. Because at one quarter of the way through the year, there is still plenty of time to catch up and to create some momentum and to achieve what it is you want to achieve in relation to that goal. One final thing I wanted to share with you about goal setting is this idea of shiny object syndrome. And you may find that there are these new priorities that have come up that weren't present at the start of the year. And that can be because things have changed. It could be because something new has arrived. And one that I noticed that I didn't set the intention on was TikTok. And now I just think about it, it could be that because I was spending less time on platforms like LinkedIn and Instagram, that maybe TikTok sort of filled a void. Although I was into it for about 3 or 4 weeks, and I've gotten really slack with it again. And I think that it is, thinking about it just as I'm talking to you now, it's sort of, I remember last year I kind of did the same thing with Clubhouse. It just sort of came along. I thought, oh, this is interesting, and I got into it. And then after 3 or 4 weeks, I kind of got a little bit bored of it. And perhaps that's something for me to have a think about in terms of my inclination to get a little bit distracted or attracted to shiny things. That's shiny object syndrome, and to make sure that I continue just to stay focused on the things that I said were actually important. Now, if you haven't actually set your intentions for 2022, if you're not a goal setting sort of person, what I want to do is actually offer you a list of 10 things that you can do that I guarantee, if you do them, will lead to improved performance in commercial real estate. In fact, these are 10 ways to kill it in commercial real estate. And the list includes the most relevant interpersonal skill that you should possess in a post-COVID world. There you go, I said it, post-COVID. You can ask yourself if you've got that skill. We'll also talk about one of the tactics that you can use to stand out on social media so you don't have to spend so much time on it. This particular one does not take long. And also I'll share a technical skill which is only going to become more and more important to master. It's something that you probably know how to do, but I'm going to put to you that it's something that you should spend a little bit more time on, and by doing so will really put you ahead of the pack. So step by step, easy to implement, with access to additional resources to help you get faster results. It's 10 ways to kill it in commercial real estate. You can grab your free copy at cresuccess.co/10, the number 10, cresuccess.co/10. Best of luck with all of your goals for 2022. I hope you're on track. I hope you're ahead. And if you're behind, I am sure you can catch up if you set the intention to do that. Thanks so much for listening. I will speak to you soon.